Who is the better fella at mock drafting? That will be decided on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Welcome in. My name is Lucas Wenzel. I am joined by my fellow co-host and fellow fella, Tyler Plath. We will be doing a SuperFlex Dynasty Startup mock draft on today's episode. 10-man PPR league. We will be breaking down our picks live as we go through this mock draft. Tyler, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you?
I'm like a 50. I'm like a 50 because we talk about, what you should do in startup drafts and all that kind of stuff. It's time to put a money where our mouth is. And just so you know, you will be dominated. You will get dominated by this draft because I'm coming in with a vengeance.
I have never heard such fallacies come out of your mouth before. We'll get right into it. We won't keep the people waiting. Let's dive in to our SuperFlex Dynasty Startup mock draft. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the entire language that I just threw out there, Superflex means there are two quarterbacks. You get a normal quarterback spot like you would in a single quarterback league, but then in a Superflex spot, you can play either a wide receiver, tight end, running back, or quarterback. So quarterbacks instantly become more valuable. Now in a dynasty league, right, we're going to include rookies into this too, Ty. So we're going to have the likes of Bijan. We're going to have the likes of JSN. We're going to have the likes of Jahmyr Gibbs all included in this draft. And so a startup means you are drafting your team from scratch with every single player in the league, including incoming rookies. And we're going to do a mock draft. I am picking at the 4 spot. Tyler, you are at the 7 spot. And we'll see how this unfolds. We'll compare teams at the end. We'll go 15 rounds. We'll keep this thing moving. So you all aren't like, oh my gosh, they're just waiting to pick Zay Jones and they're going to explain for 20 minutes.
What's wrong with Zay Jones?
Nothing wrong with Zay Jones. I know he caught a stray there, but all of that to say, we'll keep this thing moving. We'll also pause halfway to get a word from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. But enough of my jibber jabber. The people want to know how this mock draft is going to unfold, so let's give it to them, Ty. Here we go. Patrick Mahomes at the 101, Justin Jefferson, Josh Allen. If you're on YouTube, you can follow along with these picks as they unfold. If you're on the podcast, I will explain them all off for you. So again, 101, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Josh Allen. This is a no-brainer to me. There's a big 3, I believe, in Superflex, especially Dynasty leagues, and 2 of them are off the board. Jalen Hurts is my no-brainer pick here for me. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert next. Tyler, important to go quarterback in these first rounds because it's the most important position in Superflex leagues.
It is, and you get there's almost a premium on rushing upside with quarterbacks because, again, it's guaranteed points with quarterbacks. Rushing yards and rushing touchdowns are just that many more points. Hints of where I'm going. I'm going to go Lamar Jackson, okay? And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, where's he going to be playing next year? Don't matter. You know exactly what you're getting with Lamar Jackson. And in a Superflex, it's a valuable piece.
Couldn't have said it better. Mobile upside. Lamar Jackson's going to get you points wherever he lands. Couldn't agree more. CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. Team 10, double down on quarterbacks right away. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence on the turn. Team 9, double down on wide receiver. A.J. Brown. Team 8, Bijan Robinson. Tyler, back to you.
I was wondering if I would be able to go double quarterback in the first 2 rounds just to kind of get a monopoly on the quarterbacks, and I don't really feel comfortable taking another quarterback here when the next 4 on the board per sleeper are CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, Dak Prescott. Kyler's the one out of the 4 that I could consider taking, but knowing that he's going to be out for at least, I shouldn't say for at least half this year, but he's going to be out for a portion of games this year. I'm going to stay away, and I'm going to look to kind of look at a position where you do need younger talent. That's the running back spot. And I'm really bummed that Bijan went right before me because he would have been my pick because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to Bijan Robinson this year. But I will go with probably the number 2 dynasty, maybe the number 3 running back in dynasty formats. I'm going to go Breece Hall.
I like it.
And the only reason why I go Breece Hall, the other person I considered was Jonathan Taylor. Breece Hall is 21. Jonathan Taylor is 24. I think they could have very similar outputs going forward. I'll just take the 3-year. I'll take the younger running back by 3 years.
Yeah, I do like Breece Hall there. I have him and Bijan as my RB1 and 2 in dynasty formats. Jonathan Taylor being the third who went after you, and Ken Walker. Now back to me, and I'm put in a predicament, man. Because Christian McCaffrey's looking at me and begging me to draft him right now. There's also Jalen Waddle on the board. Travis Kelce is still on the board. But remember, we're in a dynasty league. We're playing longevity here as well. Age plays a factor. I can't believe
This is a bad spot.
This is a terrible spot to be in because I really want to pick Jalen Waddle, but you know what? I can't pass up on Christian McCaffrey. I can't. He's basically a wide receiver in the San Francisco 49ers offense, and he's used in their rushing attack. I cannot pass up on that in my right mind. So I'll take Christian McCaffrey there, who was the number 2 overall running back in PPR formats last year, only behind Austin Eckler, and we're going to get similar output again this year. Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud, Jalen Waddle, Kyler Murray on the turn, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and that really stinks because I was hoping to get at least one of those 3 that went off the board. But according to Sleeper's Big Board, I am going to reach down the board a little bit here. I could go Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson to snag my second quarterback. I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I want to do that. Travis Kelce is there. Again, just getting up there in age. Saquon Barkley is there. I'm going to go with the guy who I think come draft time this year. Like, I really like him right now. I'm worried by draft time I might be a little bit out on him, but Garrett Wilson, man. I mean, I cannot help but take the young gun, the 22-year-old, second year in the league. He was the wide receiver 21 in PPR formats last year. Now envision a sophomore leap. Like, there is legit top 15 upside there. To get that into the 3rd round of a dynasty startup, granted, SuperFlex, obviously, so that helps out a little bit there. But I will gladly take Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1 to build my future wide receiver core around. Travis Kelce and Bryce Young did go next. So, Tyler, that brings it back to you now with Lamar Jackson, Breece Hall. We both had the quarterback, running back start. I elected to go wide receiver. There are some juicy running back names on the board there. Also some juicy wide receiver names. What are you thinking?
This is coming down to 2 players for me. And this is kind of based on Sleeper's board. And I'm trying to do the best that I can and not get played by Sleeper's board because it's happened to all of us in the past. But there's 2 that are just staring me in the face. I'm just like, it's for sure one of those 2. It's Saquon Barkley and it's T. Higgins. I like T. Higgins, but I also look down the board a little bit and I look at some of the receivers. Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, JSN, Devontae Smith, or if I'm looking more veteran route, Devontae Adams is right there. Maybe Cooper Kupp makes it back my way. So I'm going to go Saquon Barkley, get the running backs out of the way, and potentially starting 2 of the top 5 dynasty running backs in Breece Hall and Saquon Barkley.
I was really tempted to go Saquon Barkley with my last pick because if you can stack up on those 2 with your running backs, considering how scarce the position is, how young those 2 are, that's a core. You don't have to touch running back the rest of this draft if you don't want to, based on how dynasty works for running backs and the duration and the durability of running backs in Dynasty. Like if you just get two of the top ones, like you don't have to touch the position then for a long, long time because those two are going to be in your roster or in your lineup, every single week. Stephon Diggs, Anthony Richardson, Austin Eckler, Travis Etienne on the turn, Deshaun Watson, T. Higgins. Tyler, back to you. I'm going to play a little bit of fortune teller and guess you're going to go wide receiver here.
Yeah, I was kind of crossing my fingers that T. Higgins would come back just because that's another young piece. But I got sniped conveniently. So, oh man, Cooper Kupp, Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, JSN, Devontae Adams. 5 wide receivers right there that I would be happy to take in this spot. And this is where I'm like, does anyone want to trade? But we're not doing trades.
If you trade picks in your league, this is where you're begging the trade.
Yeah. I could go Josh Jacobs and just get an absolute monopoly on running backs. And just to spice it up a little bit, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs.
Oh.
Now, like, again, absolute monopoly. Don't need to touch running back for at least 5 more rounds.
No. I'm very intrigued to see how this is all of a sudden going to shake out now.
I am too.
I'm very intrigued. Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith, and Jigbo went next. This pick is a no-brainer for me, and it's not going to be any of the names you listed, Ty. You listed all those names, and you left off one name that I figured would make its way back to me. I got
Kyle
Jalen.
Pitts.
I got piss off. Piss off of that slander. I had Jalen Hurts as my starting quarterback. Devonta Smith. Like, did we just forget he was the wide receiver 9 last year? I feel like people are just writing this guy off for no reason.
Or they just forgot about him.
Like, here's what I'm looking at. From week 10 on last year. 8 targets, 9 targets, 9, 8, 8, 8, 12, 13, 8. I mean, we're looking at top 30 finish in all those games except for one. Top 12 finishes in 3 of those games. Top 20 finishes in 6 of those games. I don't know what we're doing. Top 24 finishes in 7 of those games. I don't know what we're doing. Like, this offense is still good. Devonta Smith, give me the stack with Jalen Hurts. I have now 2 extremely young wide receivers. Devonta Smith, 24 years old. Garrett Wilson, 22 years old. Stacked with Jalen Hurts. I am set for the future at wide receiver. Kyle Pitts, DK Metcalf, Jahmyr Gibbs, Mark Andrews, Chris Olave, DeAndre Swift. I was really crossing my fingers Chris Olave would somehow work his way back to me because I would take those bad boys from Ohio State stacked on my team together to get Chris Olave in the 5th. I feel like would have been a steal. I'm in a little bit of a predicament because I'm not entirely, sure what I want to do with my next pick. Devontae Adams is on the board. Najee Harris is there. Drake London as well. I think I am. I'm just going to keep stacking up on young wide receivers. I got my hero RB. I got my starting quarterback. I'm not a big Tua guy. Like, I think he'll be fine, but like, he's not someone I'm super excited to invest in a dynasty format, especially for SuperFlex. So I think I lied. I'm going to go TJ Hawkinson instead. I want the premium at tight end. I know you wanted TJ Hawkinson. I didn't bring his name up, and you were so hoping he would fall to you. And it looks like he would have had I gone Drake London because he went right after me. But look, TJ Hawkinson in the Minnesota Vikings offense, there's a legitimate chance he's going to be the number 2 pass catching threat next year. And when he was last year, when he came over to the team, I mean, we're talking high volume. Only 3 games, from week 9 on when he joined the Vikings that he had less than 8 targets. We're talking about a guy who is a top 10 tight end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times since week 9. I mean, the dude was just throwing up fantasy points left and right. So I will. Oh, and that's in standard formats. Excuse me. all that to say, yeah, I will gladly take TJ Hawkinson as my tight end. 25 years old. He's got a lot of life left on those wheels. So I will take him as my tight end to pair with Garrett Wilson and Devonta Smith. Drake London and Devontae Adams went next. Tyler, to you now, after getting sniped on TJ Hawkinson.
Well, I got sniped on the last 3 picks because I would have been happy with Devontae Adams, Drake London, or Hawkinson because they're just pass catchers. And the top ranked wide receiver on Sleeper's board right now, or that's available, is Deebo Samuel. I'm not a big Deebo fan at the moment. We'll see, come June, July, August. But 5th round in a dynasty startup, it's a little rich for me. That I keep going. There's Christian Watson, which is very intriguing, but man, that's tough. Michael Pittman, then Jameson Williams,
Really biting you in the butt now that you didn't go wide receiver last round.
Well, yeah, but again, just sleeper bots doing me a favor and
sniping you left, right?
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna kind of go on. I'm just gonna go on the youth side of things. I'm gonna take Christian Watson here. I think one of the best. I shouldn't say one of the best. If you are stuck with a pick, err on the side of youth, and don't. And I think I know some people would also say, well, just go for best player available currently, regardless of how old they are. I would agree with that, but I think when I look at my team, no one's older than 20. Let's see, Lamar's 26. No one's older than 26. I'm going to err on the side of youth instead of trying to go for a Deebo Samuel or anyone like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. In a dynasty startup, I would much rather err on youth and let the guys like Devontae Adams kind of see their time out, because Devontae Adams only has about 2 years left, and you're already looking to shake up your entire team then if you have to move off a guy like Devontae Adams in a year or two. Just not easy pieces to work with, so I 100% agree with you. I would much rather err on the side of youth. Trey Lance, Deebo Samuel, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams on the turn, Derrick Henry, Nicholas Chubb. Back to you, Tyler. Looking at another pass catcher here, I'm assuming, considering you already have 3 running backs on your team, though Tua has taken quite the slide here.
Yeah, but that's not the quarterback I'm actually looking at if I'm going to take another quarterback. And the intrigue in maybe taking a quarterback now is that there are some pretty intriguing wide receiver names that would come back to me in the next round. Granted, they're not as young as I would want them to be, but that's okay. I am actually going to go quarterback this time, and I think this guy is one of the best SuperFlex quarterbacks that you can get in the later rounds. It's Daniel Jones.
How far did you reach down for that?
He was set. Based on like the sleeper projections, it's a round earlier than where he would have gone. So I will hear any argument for saying that's too early. The team clearly trusts him with the contract that they paid him this offseason. They're not afraid to use him in the run game. He gets an upgraded he gets a weapon in Darren Waller. And I will freely say this because you already have your tight end. I'm going to go target Darren Waller now. I know that he's older in age. But again, rushing upside, new contract, new weapon. It just screams better production for this year for Daniel Jones. And that's my super flex.
Forgot to tell you, 1.75 tight end. I'm just kidding. I'm going after Darren Waller. No.
Oh, no.
This next pick is pretty obvious for me. I do like that Daniel Jones pick. Again, 25 years old. He got his bag. They're clearly crafting an offense around him that Brian Daboll is going to use to make sure he succeeds. They're not going to let Daniel Jones out to dry after paying him that kind of money. So I do like that pick as well. Tony Pollard, Jamison Williams went after that. This is a no-brainer for me. It's Najee Harris, 25 years old, lead running back for the Steelers. I get those concerns. Tail end of last year, though, he started to turn it on. He was a top 10 running back to close out the season last year from, I believe, week 13 on. Look, the volume is never going to be pretty. The volume is going to be pretty, but the efficiency is not going to be pretty. That's what I meant to say. The volume is going to be great. The efficiency likely won't be. But man, to pair that up with Christian McCaffrey, to have my 1-2 punch at running back be Najee and Christian McCaffrey, to pair with two young studs and Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, stacked with Jalen Hurts. I mean, all day, every day. I will gladly take that. Michael Pittman, Tua Tagovailoa, Jerry Jeudy, Joe Mixon, Chris Godwin, Dameon Pierce off the board next. And I'm upset because I really wanted one of Michael Pittman or Jerry Jeudy. However, I guess I will have to settle for wide receiver. I admittedly have high hopes for this year. But again, I am going on the side of youth. Like, as much as I love George Pickens and Treylon Burks, they still have a lot that needs to go right for them. George Pickens in the same offense as Deontay Johnson, who's still going to get who still has a few years left before he starts to bite the dust. Treylon Burks in that Tennessee Titans offense, man, I am nervous. I'm going to go ahead, and the Chicago Bears went out and made sure Justin Fields got you're rolling your eyes because this is exactly who you wanted, and I am going to snipe you once again in this draft. They went out and made sure Justin Fields got his wide receiver 1 this year, and it's DJ Moore. I am not going to project a Stephon Diggs or AJB type year for him, but the Bears want to throw the football more. I don't think they want to have to just tell Justin Fields, okay, your first read, not there. Okay, go ahead and run. I think they want to make sure he succeeds in the passing game, and DJ Moore is going to be a crucial part of that. So I will gladly take DJ Moore as my wide receiver 3 after both Garrett Wilson and Devonta Smith to, again, pair with TJ Hawkinson in the duo. I have it running back with Jalen Hurts as my starting quarterback. Will Levis, George Kittle, Tyler, now that you've been sniped multiple times here, you have your quarterback 2 for your super flex spot. Again, I'm just going to guess you're going to look the pass catching route. Again, considering you have 3 running backs and only 1 wide receiver on your team.
Yeah, and I can't get cute with this pick. You know, Treylon Burks, George Pickens, Jordan Addison, Quinn Johnston are all right there, and they're very intriguing young options. I can't get cute with it. And I need production for my wide receiver spot. Not to mean that Christian Watson can't produce, but I just need a more bona fide name. And one of the remaining options is Terry McLaurin. I've spoken in favor of McLaurin before, and I'll take him here. I know that he's 28. No, he's 27, and he's going to be 28. That doesn't really intimidate me, though. Again, he's a piece that is going to help me, or that's going to produce right away, and I can figure out how to move on, or find a replacement, whatever, later on down the road. Just getting points right now.
Yeah, 100% agree. And especially when you look at some of these other guys, again, the Jordan Addisons, the Treylon Burks, just the things that need to go right, Terry McLaurin already has in place for him. So I agree. I do like Terry McLaurin still as a dynasty asset, as a wide receiver 1 in Washington. And especially when you pair him with a guy like Jacoby Brissett, who, hey, brought Amari Cooper quite a bit of fantasy relevance last year. I don't mind that pick there with Terry McLaurin at all. Jordan Addison, J.K. Dobbins, Treylon Burks, and Quentin Johnston on the turn. Wow, Johnston ahead of George Pickens. That kind of surprises me. At any rate, sleeper bots do sleeper bot things. Dalvin Cook, Tyler, back to you then. Again, I'm going to shoot in the dark. I'm guessing you're still looking pass catchers here until your guy Darren Waller comes around.
Yeah. I thought about Goddard for a second, and I was like, yeah, no, I'll wait for the Waller-Jones stack. So I'm looking receiver, and again, I'm looking production, but I can make I can put a bit of a caveat on this for this specific player. He may not be producing right away this year, but once he gets a starting quarterback back,
stop. Don't. No.
I'm taking Marquise Brown.
You butthead.
You sniped me twice. It's time that you get sniped.
I was so hoping he would make his way. Oh, go ahead, explain Marquise Brown.
No, again, like he's not going to produce right away this year, but once he gets Kyler back, he's 25 years old, and you get him for at least, 4 years, and him with Kyler, I very much want that on my team. So as my wide receiver 3, my wide receiver 2, depending on how well Watson produces this year, it could have been a lot better, but I'm pretty happy with how my wide receivers turned out.
Yeah, I am absolutely in love with Marquise Brown's value right now. The fact you can get him in the 8th round.
Right.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be gone. Marquise Brown's going to be the wide receiver 1. 17 fantasy points per game without DeAndre Hopkins last year. Dude was averaging 7 receptions on 10 targets. He was a machine. It's a brilliant pick. It's an absolutely brilliant pick. Calvin Ridley, Brandon Ayuk off the board next. And I'm upset because I did want Brandon Ayuk there. But as I continue scrolling down, I think there is a wide receiver I would rather invest in. You took Terry McLaurin last round. I'm going to take his counterpart in Jahan Dotson here. I was debating, my second quarterback here with Kirk Cousins, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff still on the board. We'll see if one of them makes it back to me in the next round, because that will probably be my next pick. But for now, I am going to go Jahan Dotson here. Look, wide receiver 17 in fantasy points per game from week 13 on last year. He really started to find his groove, 7 touchdowns in 12 games. I'm a big Jahan Dotson fan. I think he does take a step forward next year. I don't think he'll be elite, like the Garrett Wilsons and the Chris Olaves of the world, even Drake London, but I think he'll be a key part of this Washington offense as the number 2 weapon. So I will gladly take Jahan Dotson. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send us into a break, and we will then see if a quarterback makes it to me in the next round. So with that, not yet. We don't want the transition yet. I'm going to take Jahan Dotson, and we are going to hear from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. If you recall, right before the break, I took Jahan Dotson with my 8th round pick. And I said quarterback was going to be my next pick should any of the ones I had mentioned make it back to me. The next pick, Christian Kirk, Dallas Goedert, Zach Charbonnet, and Alvin Kamara on the turn. Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco. Those were a lot of the names that were secretly tempting me. And if you notice, none of those are quarterbacks. So I'm going to take... I might need to flip a coin. I'm going to take Kirk Cousins. At this point, I'm not playing the long game here of who's going to give me the most longevity. I'm not a big Kenny Pickett guy. I'd rather not have him as my second quarterback. So to throw Kirk Cousins in, who, correct me if I'm wrong, ended up finishing as a top 12 fantasy quarterback last year. Oh, guess what? He was a quarterback.
Top 10.
He was a quarterback 6 last year. He's quarterback 6. So I'm very pleased with that to snag what I believe will be another good offensive season for the Minnesota Vikings, the captain of that ship in Kirk Cousins at my SuperFlex spot. Again, I'm not playing longevity there. My guess is that I'm going to be able to snag one in the draft, or I'll just have extra insurance on some, again, younger, not as likely to blossom guys, but I'll take a few shots in the later rounds on some younger guys to have some insurance there for Kirk Cousins, who is 35 years old. Miles Sanders and Rashad White went after that. So Tyler, back to you. You finally have 3 wide receivers on your team, you have your 2 quarterbacks, you have 3 running backs. This is where you can start to diversify and kind of have your pickings of whoever's on the board until, as you've already tipped your hand, Darren Waller comes back around to you.
Yeah, and I am looking wide receiver because wide receiver, looking at my team, is kind of the one. It's the weakest spot out of all the groups besides tight end, because there's obviously no tight end yet. But there's 3 wide receivers that kind of speak to me a little bit here: Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, and Mike Williams. And it won't be Mike Williams because as much as I am a fan of Mike Williams, I'm not a fan of the 13, 14 games a year.
Yep.
I know that I can get a full season out of Amari Cooper or Deontay Johnson. And I would also like to just point out that currently on Sleepers Dynasty Superflex Big Board, they have Keenan Allen going ahead of Mike Williams still. That's
I don't get that.
fascinating.
I
That's
don't get
fascinating. So again, like I said, this comes down to Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson. I like Amari Cooper because he has Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball, and it remains to be seen just how effective Deshaun Watson is this year. Not having played football for a very, very long time. Deontay Johnson, though, has Kenny Pickett throwing him the ball. George Pickens could be maybe taking over that wide receiver 1 spot this year, maybe next year. So I lean Amari Cooper, and I'm actually going to take him here, but I think Deontay can be a bit of a bounce back just because he scored 0 touchdowns last year. But again, that Pickens threat it pushes me towards Amari Cooper.
And I don't blame you. I think there's more hoops than people realize for Deontay Johnson to jump through. Like, his advanced metrics just really weren't that great last year. They just weren't. Like, the targets were still there. But man, some of those advanced metrics are just. I threw out a tweet. I wish I had it right in front of me. I would read right off all the stats I threw out there. But like, it's not just as simple as Deontay Johnson could catch more touchdowns last year. Like, it was actually pretty bad for Deontay Johnson last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you get George Pickens, who, I don't know if he's a more talented wide receiver, but I certainly think he has more upside than Deontay Johnson going forward. I really don't blame you with Amari Cooper, who now gets Deshaun Watson back. And again, we saw Amari Cooper top 10 relevance last year, and he still has a few years under his belt as your wide receiver with guys like Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, and Marquise Brown, who are all relatively young still. Terry McLaurin getting up there, but with Watson and Marquise Brown, I think that's a fine pick there to round out your wide receiver group. Russell Wilson, Pat Freiermuth, DeAndre Hopkins, and James Cook on the turn. Deontay Johnson, Cam Akers next. Tyler, back to you. 3 straight wide receivers. You going to keep the train rolling?
So I'm going to try and play the board a bit because it's not the smartest thing to do. But I look at the teams in front of me right here. Every single team has a tight end. Dalton Schultz and Michael Mayer are still ahead of Darren Waller on the big board. The odds at Darren Waller, I don't know if Lucas is just on one tonight, but if he really wants to just kind of be a thorn in my side, he could take Darren Waller, and I will just say piss off like he told me to earlier. But this pick, I'm going to go Zay Flowers.
Ooh.
I know that Mike Williams is still on the board. I've looked at Rashad Bateman as a potential, like, what if Lamar stays and there's a stack there. I went with Zay Flowers just because he's the youngest out of those guys, and just looking at Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper, who are both 20, or who will both be 28. Having a rookie wide receiver in the wings feels a lot better than a Mike Williams or a Rashad Bateman. So that's why I went with Zay Flowers.
I couldn't agree more. And if Zay Flowers made it back to me, he would have been really tempting despite the 4 wide receivers that I have on my squad already, who are all, below the age of 25. He would have been really tempting. But this pick for me, very easy. Keenan Allen and Devon Achane went afterwards. I think it's crazy that Devon Achane went ahead of A.J. Dillon. Are you kidding me? A.J. Dillon, 24 years old. he wasn't good last year. We're projecting a breakout year for him. But to close out the season from week 12 on, running back 13, running back 6, running back 9, running back 20, running back 24. Threw up a dud in week 18, but most teams aren't playing week 18 anyways. So you're telling me I had a top 24 finish from him every week when it mattered most last season. He closed out the season very, very well. I will gladly take that as my running back 3. And AJ Dillon actually finished as the RB 26 last year. Not as bad of a finish as people really make it out to be. It was disappointing. As someone who went hero RB and took him as my running back 2 on multiple teams, it stung. It really did. But to have him as my running back 3 with the core that I already have, I am absolutely thrilled with that. Oh no! Oh no!
Why?
Josh Downs, Tyler Algier, Dalton Schultz, Mike Williams on the turn, Mike Evans, and Tyler. You want to break the news to the people who aren't watching on YouTube?
It's Darren Waller.
Darren Waller ahead of Michael Mayer. I'm so sorry. Rip in peace. That's brutal.
It's stupid is what it is, because that's the same team that has, guess who? Kyle Pitts. Why? There's no need to do that, Sleeper. There's no need for that.
That's absolutely brutal. I am so sorry. All right, here's the deal. I'm torn between 2 players here, Rashad Bateman and David Montgomery. I have 4 really, really good wide receivers I'm confident in. I'm a little bit more shaky on Bateman. And Montgomery, only 25 years old. He's going to take the place of our good friend relatively good friend in previously of the Detroit Lions, now finds his way to the New Orleans Saints. He will be filling the role of our good friend Jamal Williams. I got hope for Montgomery, man. I think he found the perfect landing spot in Detroit. So I will take him here to round out my depth at running back. Again, my theme is if I can keep as many of my players on my team under the age of 25, with the exception of Christian McCaffrey and Kirk Cousins, I'm going to be very thrilled with that. And I would much rather do that than take the iffy shot on Rashad Bateman, who may or may not have Lamar Jackson in Baltimore this year. Michael Mayer and Rashad Bateman both went afterwards. So no matter what, Rashad Bateman wouldn't have made it to you, Ty, but I don't think that matters considering you have gone 5 wide receivers, in your last 6 picks. And this was going to be the round you took Darren Waller. I don't think you could have waited any longer. So what's your plan now? Because you're kind of in desperation mode for tight end, I won't spoil whatever plans you may have in place. But this was the round you were going to get your tight end, and you no longer can get your tight end you were after because Team 3 decided to chuck up the birds and draft Darren Waller with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. Team 3 said, "Oh, you want this guy? Ha ha ha. Never mind." I could look at running back, but man, I'm just I'll take a running back here, and it's really the one that is he's in a very confusing situation because no one knows how it's going to play out. But I do like the fact that he's 24 years old. I know Zach Evans is there, but I think Zach Evans is way, way, way overblown here. I'm going to go Brian Robinson. I know that Robinson it does not offer much receiving value, but who knows? There could be some kind of goal line value with him, and having him as a 4th option, I feel pretty okay about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would have much rather gone Brian Robinson than Sean Tucker there, and Zach Evans, who Sean Tucker is still on the board, but Zach Evans did end up going. But Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram, Jalen Hyatt, and Cole Kmet on the turn went before Zach Evans, and then David Njoku, which is brutal. That's 3 tight ends in 6 picks coming back to you, Ty, for someone who doesn't have a tight end yet. There's a guy I really like on the board, though. At the tight end position. Yeah. Oh, come on, man. You know I love me some Greg D. You know I love me some Greg Dulcich, but that's not
I
for you. That I understand that might not be for you.
only issue that I have with Greg Dulcich is just who was the last tight end that really succeeded in a Sean Payton offense?
I mean, has a tight end succeeded in New Orleans in general? Taysom Hill doesn't count.
Yeah, Taysom Hill doesn't count.
I think that's a New Orleans thing. I don't know if that's necessarily a Sean Payton thing.
Possibly. That could just be a team building thing, preference by New Orleans, because they've never really invested in tight end.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the running backs right now, I'm not really a fan of. We'll talk about running backs, I don't know, next week or the week after that, but I refuse to take, if I'm doing a startup draft, I refuse to take a rookie running back without knowing their spot, unless their name is a Bijan Robinson.
Right.
Like I love Tank Bigsby. He's my running back 3 in this class. He could land in a Jacksonville situation or in a Denver situation, and that instantly just kind of tanks his value. So I'm going to pivot away from running back. I could look at finding another wide receiver. But man, desperate times call for desperate measures, and I'm just going to have to ride with Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, Greg D, baby. Greg D. I love me some Greg Dulcich. Look, Greg wasn't all that bad. I know he had his stretch where he was great, but then towards the tail end of last season, he really started to fade off. But I mean, he had his stretch where he had 2 targets, 8 targets, then 8 targets, weeks 13 through 16. Those were his target totals. I mean, the volume is there. Clearly wanted to get him involved. Russ was looking his way. Like I don't hate that pick, for considering if Darren Waller was your number 1 option and all the other top tight ends are gone, you're throwing darts at this point. So I would take the youth and the guy who was getting the volume at one point. I really do think that's a good pick. James Conner, Tank Bigsby. Back to me now. I haven't taken a wide receiver in a while, and my strategy coming into this draft was to hit wide receivers early and hard. And when Hawkinson was still there, and then Najee Harris came all the way back, I mean, that I was willing to make some exceptions there. Still ended up getting DJ Moore, Jahan Dotson. Just some of the wide receiver names here, it's just like middling, like borderline starting to get too old or are too old. Like as much as I love Tyler Lockett, he's 30 years old. And with how my team is constructed, I really don't want to have to worry about moving off of him in the near future. So I'm actually going to continue, like, basically I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin at the running back position, I think, for this draft. Maybe I'll draft one more, but I'm gonna go Khalil Herbert here, who I think will lead the Chicago backfield this year, only 24 years old. Look, he was more efficient with David Montgomery. I will not deny that. Crap. Two of my targets were just picked. Khalil Herbert's going to lead the backfield. I know Justin Fields is still a threat to run the football. Like I'm not super concerned. I think Khalil Herbert will get his own. I think Deonta Foreman will get his. But again, with Khalil Herbert being my running back 5 after McCaffrey, Najee Harris, AJ Dillon, and David Montgomery, like that's just more of an upside pick for me at this point. And I'm happy to do that with him being only 24 years old. Sean Tucker, Dawson Knox, and Elijah Moore, who is one of my targets, and Juju Smith-Schuster went on the turn. Zeke Elliott and Darnell Mooney, who is my other target, went off the board after that. I'm going to go pure upside. Like, dude, I love Tyler Lockett. I thoroughly enjoy Tyler Lockett. I really do. I don't want to have to worry about trading him, though. I'm going to hope and pray that the Lord Almighty decides to bless Kadarius Toney with some fresh hamstrings this year. Keep him on the football field. 24 years old. Kansas City lost Juju Smith-Schuster. They didn't bring in another pass catcher. They'll probably look to add one in the draft, but as of right now, it is Travis Kelce as the main threat to Kadarius Toney being the number 1 wide receiver in this offense. Gladly will take the shot on that as my wide receiver 5. Again, he might sniff my lineup. He might not. But at that point, being attached to Patrick Mahomes as the wide receiver 1 at this given moment, happily. I will gladly take that in the 13th round of Dynasty Startup. Tyler Lockett did go afterwards. He finally fell off the board. And then Cortland Sutton went after him. Tyler, back to you now. How are you looking to round out your team here in the final 4 rounds of the draft?
I need some more dart throws at tight end for sure. I wonder if I can probably wait on tight end because when you're dart throwing, when you feel comfortable with taking another one is when you should take one. Right now, I'm just going to take another, actually. Yeah, I'll take another receiver here. Wan'Dale Robinson is very, very intriguing in the spot, but
Yep.
you got to remember that the threat of a first round wide receiver coming in is very, very apparent.
Zay Flowers, maybe.
Oh, Zay Flowers for sure. So my attention actually kind of goes to Alec Pierce.
Ooh.
Just kind of a forgotten name for the Colts. Michael Thomas is there. He's 30, but he's probably got it. I mean, a year, and who knows if he's actually going to play this year? It seems like no one knows at this point still. So you know what? I'm actually going to take a wide receiver, and I like the youth of Alec Pierce, but I'm just going to go for just points with this guy. It's Brandon Cooks. And I wouldn't consider Brandon Cooks if he was still in Houston, but him in Dallas now makes a big difference to me. So I'm a-okay taking Brandon Cooks there as my wide receiver 6 now. So
yeah, up until last year, he was a 1,000-yard receiver every single season he was healthy in the NFL, and I think he has a great chance to get back on track again in Dallas. We'll see how Brian Schottenheimer shifts that offense from a Kellen Moore style offense. I think it would have been much more of a lock if Kellen Moore were still at the helm. But I do like Brandon Cooks there that late. I know he's aging, but has a chance to really reemerge as a relevant fantasy option in Dallas. I don't mind that pick there at all. Wan'Dale Robinson did go after. And then you have Jacoby Myers, who is fresh in a Las Vegas Raiders jersey. Dalton Kincaid, the rookie. Lots of upside there with Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a very interesting one. He would have been a good dart throw in my mind. Sky Moore then on the turn as well. Lenny Fournette, Antonio Gibson, and now back to you, Ty.
yeah, Kincaid was someone that I considered there just because he's been getting plenty of hype as kind of the tight end 1 of this rookie class. But there's another tight end that's still available that I consider to be a much safer dart throw.
No, don't do it.
That's Chigakonkwo.
No. Did I maybe potentially slightly egg you on to take Greg Dulcich so I could take Chigakonkwo later? Maybe I did because I love
TJ. You have TJ Hawkinson. You can't even talk.
I love Chig, man. You give your thoughts. I'll give my thoughts on Chig.
I just look at the current state of the Titans and just who are the pass catchers for that team. It's Treylon Burks, Chigakonkwo. That's really really about it. So, I like year 2. I like the upside of year 2 for Chigakonkwo this year, just because again they've got no one else to throw to unless they bring in a wide receiver, which won't be a first round wide receiver because again I'm going to reference my own tweet on this. No team has used multiple first round draft capital on wide receivers, and I'll explain that. No team has 2 wide receivers that they've used first round draft picks on. The Bengals use a first round pick on Jamar Chase, second round pick on T. Higgins. No team has 2 first round wide receivers. Tennessee's not taking a wide receiver in the first round. They're not. Not with the state of their team. So Chigakonkwo is going to have a big. I shouldn't say a big role. It'll be a nice role for someone going in the 14th round of a dynasty startup draft.
It's incredibly difficult to predict tight end success in fantasy football. on who the next breakout tight end is going to be. However, there is one metric that is proven to be one of the more reliable ones thus far, and that is yards per route run. Chigakonkwo, 3.26 yards per route run last year, first in the league. He was also first in the league in yards per reception, 14.1 yards per reception, 9.8 yards per target. That was second amongst tight ends. 33.3% target rate. So he was targeted on a third of the routes he ran. That was the second highest in the league last year. 0.7 fantasy points per route run at the tight end position. That was first. 2.11 fantasy points per target. That was fifth amongst tight ends. Chigakonkwo might be the next big tight end in fantasy football next year. I absolutely love the value you're going to be able to get on him in dynasty startups here, where he's going in the 14th round in your redraft leagues. You can punt on tight end and take Chigakonkwo later, and I would be willing to push the chips in on Chigakonkwo next year. There you go. That is my piece on Chigakonkwo. Let's keep things moving, Ty, because we're coming up to an hour here, and we still got we're going to finish out this round, and we still got 2 rounds we need to clip through quickly. After Chig, Kendre Miller, Donovan Peoples-Jones. This is where I'm going to start looking at a quarterback to kind of fill out my roster here. And I'm going to take a guy who has a starting job and is young. Kenny Pickett fell this far. I'll take the backup to Kirk Cousins there, and I'll take Kenny Pickett, who is young, who could take a step forward this year in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Great depth piece there for me at quarterback. I will happily take that. Cedric Tillman, Elijah Mitchell, Tajay Spears, Michael Thomas. Our boy, Jamal Williams. I don't have the drop ready, but Jamal Williams went next, and then Kareem Hunt off the board after that. This is difficult because there's a lot of names I really like on the board as dart throws here. I am going to take John Mechie, though. Look, sat out last year due to, correct me if I'm wrong, it was leukemia, I believe. And he was not able to play last year. We'll see if he's able to play this year. But again, a guy who hasn't even played his rookie season could get caught up to speed in a team that desperately needs pass catchers. Now, if Jackson Smith and Jigba lands there, fine, so be it. But John Mechie, only 22 years old. I would gladly take a shot on him as my wide receiver 6 to start filling out my roster. Devin Singletary, Trey McBride after that. Shoot, I really wanted to take Trey McBride there. I totally forgot he was on my board. That's right. I have TJ Hawkinson. I don't have to worry too much. Tyler, back to you now. You now kind of have your duo tight ends. How are you looking to round out your team?
Yeah, I'm going to grab a third quarterback just in I'm just looking at the team and like, if this was an actual team, there's really no one I would want to drop to pick up a quarterback when my quarterbacks go on bye weeks and stuff. And I know people are like, well, just play another position player in the SuperFlex. I don't really want to, though. I would rather have a quarterback to still play that SuperFlex spot. So I'm going to go with youth as well, but I'm going to go with a little bit of a stack here. I'm going to grab Jordan Love.
I like it.
And again, there's not much writing on him for me this year, in terms of fantasy, just because he's a quarterback 3. But I have Christian Watson. And if it somehow works out with Jordan Love in Green Bay, I then have a stack moving forward for the rest of this league. That is fake, but still.
No, I like that pick. I think that was the right move there. You have your 2, and your death piece is just getting a stack that has upside. I love that. I 100% agree with that. Cedric Brown, Alexander Madison, Josh Palmer, Damian Harris, Roshan Johnson, Isaiah Likely, Chase Brown. Did I say I did not? I said Cedric Brown. Chase Brown, excuse me. Roshan Johnson and Isaiah Likely. Back to you now, Tyler, with the last pick of our draft in the 16th round.
Had I known that no one was going to take a quarterback, I definitely would have waited for Jordan Love until this round and taken Alexander Madison with my last pick.
He was on my board as well.
Well, okay, that happens. I am looking at my team. I've got a ton of receivers, 6 to be exact. I've only got 4 running backs. I've got a backup tight end. I got 2 young tight ends. I could take another dart throw on a tight end here. I'm going to go running back, though. I'm going to take Deontay Foreman.
I like it.
I just like potential goal line work, and that's really about it.
Yep, I couldn't agree more on that. Israel Abankanda, I really think he's a sneaky guy who could climb up some dynasty draft boards this year. Depending on his landing spot, he could be a sneaky good dynasty asset in your rookie drafts this year. He's a name to keep an eye on out of Pittsburgh. 4.26 reports claimed he ran between a 4.26 and a 4.32 40 at his pro day. And his broad and vertical jump metrics at his pro day would have tested out first amongst running backs. Both of those would have tested out first amongst running backs at the combine. He is sneaky. Yes, Tyler, your hand is raised.
Is there a way that we can change my pick?
Who would you rather have instead?
I would rather have Rashad Penny.
You would rather... Oh, brother. Draft that man, Rashad Penny.
I would rather have Rashad Penny, and I don't care if it doesn't work out. I at least just want to take the shot on the guy.
Oh, he's so buried down on Sleeper's big board.
I know.
I mean, I think I still would have taken all of my running backs ahead of him, but yeah, that's a phenomenal dart throw in the last round, especially with Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, and Josh Jacobs on your team. Oh, that is lovely. That is lovely. I am going to take some tight end insurance on TJ Hawkinson. I'm going to take Jelani Woods, who I think has a ton of upside in a Shane Steichen offense. I know, Tyler, you really enjoy that pick. Since you took my Chigakonkwa, I'll take your Jelani Woods, and I'll offer a trade for him straight up afterwards. Jelani Woods for Chigakonkwa straight up. No, Jelani Woods, look, I think he has an immense amount of upside in the Shane Steichen offense. We saw what he did for Dallas Goedert. Look, as much as I've been the notorious Mo Alley Cox fan on this podcast, the reality is Jelani Woods just has more upside, and they're both ginormous. So I will take Jelani Woods as my tight end insurance on TJ Hawkinson. And then to wrap out the draft, Dwayne McBride, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Deonta Foreman did end up going with the very last pick in this draft. All right, Tyler, since we're coming up on an hour here, give me your quick thoughts on one thing you would have done differently in this draft.
I think I would have taken Cooper Kupp, or I should have taken a receiver instead of Josh Jacobs in the fourth. And not to say that Josh Jacobs is a bad player, but I'm just looking at my wide receivers and I'm lacking kind of that true, I shouldn't say a true number, wide receiver one. Most of these guys are wide receiver twos on teams. And I passed up on an opportunity to grab a wide receiver one, like a Cooper Kupp, like a Devontae Smith, even a Devontae Adams. I know he went to pick before Christian Watson, but I think that's one thing I would have done different, is gone wide receiver instead of Josh Jacobs, and then look in that 5th, 6th round for a third running back if I desired it.
That all checks out for me. I was shocked when you started 3 running backs, but this is why we do mock drafts. So we experiment, we try and figure out what strategies may or may not work for us, what we do like, what we don't like about specific strategies in mock drafts with these parameters on them. If there's one thing I would have done differently, honestly, I think I might have waited on tight end. I like having TJ Hawkinson. I like having the young stud. But there's just something about having my 5 wide receivers being Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, Drake London, DJ Moore, and Jahan Dotson, where I could have just attacked more middling, I guess, tight ends, the Pat Freiermuths, the Chigakonkwas, to just draft a ton of high upside at the tight end and just continue drafting youth at wide receiver, which I still ended up doing. And maybe the biggest mistake I should have rather done is, instead of taking Kadarius Toney, taking Chigakonkwa instead. But that feels like a pretty boring thing I would have rather done. But ultimately, I love how I attacked this draft. It really fell in my favor. I'm loving having Christian McCaffrey and Najee as my 1-2 punch. Garrett Wilson and Devonta Smith as my 1-2 punch. Stack that with Jalen Hurts. TJ Hawkinson at top, probably 3 or 4 dynasty tight end. Like, I'm thrilled with how this draft fell for me. Anything you want to add before we wrap out the episode here? We'll throw these up on the socials. Actually, here's what we'll do. You let us know down in the comments on YouTube right now who you think had the better team. If you're listening to the podcast, you can head over to our Instagram and our Twitter. We'll post the teams on there as well, where you all can vote who drafted the better team. That was at the top of this episode. We're going to figure that out. And Tyler, I think the people are going to side with me here. I'm not going to lie.
It's only because I trusted a sleeper bot to not take Darren Waller. That's why. That's why.
That's what's going to lose you this whole thing. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Make sure to follow our socials. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter. You can see my name right down here. It's spelled the exact same way. Tyler_Plath. You just throw an underscore in the middle of Tyler's name. Main page is FF Fellas on Twitter. The FF Fellas on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Please, we are releasing new content every single day for you all. We're releasing shorts. We're releasing long-form content. We're releasing podcasts for you all. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. You will get notified of all of our videos that are coming out. We would greatly, greatly appreciate your continued support. We missed Cameron, but Cameron is enjoying a little bit of a belated honeymoon. He is out wandering the lands of Ireland. Will he be back next week? I don't think will he be back in time for next week? It'll be a quick turnaround if it is.
I would not be surprised if he's not, but who knows? He might come through for the fellas. Who knows?
He's a game time decision. With that, two students being dudes with the Fantasy Football Fellas. We will see you all next week where we'll begin diving into the rookie class, discussing quarterbacks and running backs specifically. We'll see you all then. Deuces.